Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, 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 Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Krishna, Hare Ram, sit properly. Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Sivasati Gauravakta Brinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Rama Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sati Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna
Ram Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Ram Hare Hare Ram Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Bhakti
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Sanmataji, Danda Pranam, all glory to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining. So let us begin with Mangalachana prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 9, entitled as Bhishma's glorious passing away, the passing away of Bhishma Dev in the presence of Lord Krishna. So we are at 29 verse. Yeah, Mataji, please begin from your side. Yeah, Samyukta Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. While Bhishma Deva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Purport. The perfect yogis or mystics can leave the material body at their own sweet will at a suitable time and go to a suitable planet desired by them. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.24, it is said that self-realized souls who have exactly identified themselves with the interest of the Supreme Lord can generally leave the material body during the time of the fire god's effulgence and when the sun is in the northern horizon, and thus achieve the transcendental sky. In the Vedas, these times are considered auspicious for quitting the body, and they are taken advantage by the expert mystics who have perfected the system. Perfection of yoga means attainment of such supermental states as to be able to leave the material body as desired. Yogis can also reach any planet within no time without a material vehicle. The yogis can reach the highest planetary system within a very short time, and this is impossible for the materialist. Even attempting to reach the highest planet will take millions of years at a speed of millions of miles per hour. This is a different science, and Bhishmadeva knew well how to utilize it. He was just waiting for the suitable moment to quit his material body, and the golden opportunity arrived when he was instructing his noble grandsons, the Pandavas. He thus prepared himself to quit his body before the exalted Lord Sri Krishna, the pious Pandavas, and the great sages headed by Bhagwan, Vyasa, etc. All great souls. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mother. Sandhya Mother, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men stopped speaking and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shine. Purport. In the momentous hour of leaving his material body, Bhishma Deva set the glorious example concerning the important function of the human form of life. The subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life. Therefore, if one is absorbed in thoughts of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, he is sure to go back to Godhead without any doubt. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.5 to 15. 5. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one.
Yeah, Mother, these are from Bhagavad Gita, those translations, 8.5 to 8.15. Srila Prabhupada is given here. Yeah, go ahead, Mother.
Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead is mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. He, O Partha Arjuna, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as a one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is the smaller than smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons learned in the Vedas who utter Omkara and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Partha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. Shall I conclude, Prabhuji?
Conclude it, yes.
Sri Bhishma Deva attained the perfection of keeping his body at will and was fortunate enough to have Lord Krishna, the object of his attention, personally present at the time of death. He therefore fixed his open eyes upon him. He wanted to see Sri Krishna for a long time out of his spontaneous love for him. Because he was a pure devotee, he had very little to do with the detailed performance of yogic principles. Simple bhakti yoga is enough to bring out perfection. Therefore, the ardent desire of Bhishmadeva was to see the person of Lord Krishna, the most lovable object. And by the grace of the Lord, Sri Bhishmadeva had this opportunity at the last stage of his breathing.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Yeah. Lalit Mohan Prabhu, please read.
Translation. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendently to the controller of all living beings while keeping his material body. Purport. The material body is a gift of material energy, technically called illusion. Identification with the body is due to the forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with Lord. For a pure devotee of Lord like Bhishma Deva, this illusion was at once removed as soon as Lord arrived. Lord Krishna is like the sun, and the illusory external material energy is like darkness. In the presence of the sun, there is no possibility that darkness can stand. Therefore, just on the arrival of Lord Krishna, all material contamination was completely removed. And Bhishma Deva was thus able to be transcendently situated by stopping the activities of impure senses in collaboration with matter. The soul is originally pure, and so also the senses. By material contamination, the senses assume the role of imperfection and impurity. By revival of the contact with the Supreme Pure, Lord Krishna, the senses again become freed from the material contamination. Bhishmadeva attained all these transcendental conditions prior to his leaving the material body because of Lord's presence. The Lord is controller and benefactor of all living beings. That is the verdict of all Vedas. He is supreme eternity and living entity amongst all eternal living beings. And he alone provides all the necessities of all kinds of living beings. Thus, he provided all facilities to fulfill the transcendental desires of his great devotee Bhishmadeva, who prayed as follows.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
This point, when I read, remembering that the drop coming from cloud is pure. When it touches with the mud, it got impurity. It lost the original qualities of water. By material contamination, similarly, the material contamination, the senses assume the role of imperfection and impurities. Prabhupada has given that example, water drop. Yeah. Raju Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Bhishmadeva said, "Let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending to the material world. Although from him, only the material world is created. Only the material world is created. Purport, because Bhishmadeva was a statesman, the head of the Kuru dynasty, a great general and leader of Kshatriyas. His mind was strength over many subjects, and his thinking, feeling, and willing were engaged in different matters. Now, in order to achieve pure devotional service, he wanted to invest all powers of thinking, feeling, and willing entirely in the Supreme Being, Lord Krishna. He is described herein as a leader of the devotees and all powerful. Although Lord Krishna is the originally personality of Godhead, he himself descended to the earth to bestow upon his pure devotees the boon of devotional service. He descended sometimes Lord Krishna as he is, and sometimes as Lord Chaitanya. Both are leaders of the pure devotees. Pure devotees of the Lord have no desire to other than the service of the Lord, and therefore they are called Satvata. The Lord is the chief amongst such Sattvatas. Bhishmadeva therefore had no other desires. Unless one is purified from all sorts of material desires, the Lord does not become the one's leader. Desires cannot be wiped out, but they have only to be purified. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10 by the Lord himself that he gives his instruction from the within the heart of the pure devotees who is constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Such instruction is given not for any material purpose, but only for going back to home, going back home, back to Godhead. For the ordinary man who wants to lord it over material nature, the Lord only sanctions and becomes a witness of activities, but he never gives the non-devotee instructions for going back to Godhead. That is the difference in dealings by Lord with different living beings, both the devotee and non-devotee. He is the leader of all living beings. As the king of the state, rules both prisoners and the free citizens. But his dealings are different in terms of devotee and non-devotee. Non-devotees never care to take any instruction from the Lord, and therefore the Lord is silent in their case, although his witness all their activities and award them the necessary results, good or bad. The devotees are above his material goodness and badness. They are progressive on the path of the transcendence, and therefore they have no desire for anything material. The devotee also knows Sri Krishna as the original Narayana, because Lord Sri Krishna, by his plenary portion, appears as the Karmadakshaya Vishnu and original source of all material creation. The Lord also desires the association of his pure devotees and for them only Lord descends to the earth and enables them. Enlivens them. The Lord appears out of his own will. He is not forced by the condition of any condition of material nature. He is therefore described here as the Vibhu or the Almighty. For he is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. Hare Krishna.
Anu Vibhu. We are Anu, minute particle of Krishna, his creation. But he is Vibhu, gigantic forms. Anu Vibhu, there are two different words inside Anu and Vibhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, let me read. Translation of put by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the Tamala tree. His body attracts everyone in the three planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and I may not desire fruitive results. Purport. When Sri Krishna, by his own internal pleasure, appears on earth, he does so by the agency of his internal potency. The attractive features of his transcendental body are a desire in all the three worlds, namely the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Nowhere in the universe are there such beautiful bodily features as those of Lord Krishna. Period. Very important. Nowhere in the universe are there such beautiful bodily features as those of Lord Krishna. There is one beautiful song, right? Adharam Madhuram Vadanam Madhuram. That song. Therefore, his transcendental body has nothing to do with anything materially created. Arjuna is described here as a conqueror, and Krishna is described as his intimate friend. Bhishmadeva, on his bed of arrows after the battle of Kurukshetra, is remembering the particular dress of Lord Krishna, which he put on as the driver of Arjuna's chariot. While fighting was going on between Arjuna and Bhishma, Bhishma's attraction was drawn by the glittering dress of Krishna, and indirectly he admired his so-called enemy Arjuna for possessing the Lord as his friend. Arjuna was always a conqueror because the Lord was his friend. Bhishmadeva takes this opportunity to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhe, friend of Arjuna. Because the Lord is pleased when he is addressed conjointly with his devotees, who are related with him in different transcendental humors. While Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna, sun rays glittered on the dress of the Lord, and the beautiful hue created by the reflection of such rays was never forgotten by Bhishma Deva. As a great fighter, he was relishing the relation of Krishna in the chivalrous humor. Transcendental relation with the Lord in any one of the different rasas, humors, is relishable by the respective devotees in the highest ecstasy. Less intelligent mundaners who want to make a show of being transcendentally related with the Lord artificially jump at once to the relation of conjugal love, imitating the damsels of Vrajadhama. Such a cheap relation with the Lord exhibits only the base. Such a cheap relation with the Lord exhibits only the base mentality of the mundaner, because one who has relished conjugal human with the Lord cannot be attached to worldly conjugal rasa, which is condemned even by mundane ethics. The eternal relation of a particular soul with the Lord is evolved. A genuine relation of the living being with the Supreme Lord can take any form out of the five principal rasas. It does not make any difference in transcendental degree to the genuine devotee. Bhishma Deva is a concrete example of this, and it should be carefully observed how the great general is transcendentally related with the Lord. Yeah, I think Chandramani Prabhu, you join now. Please read, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. On the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hooves of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go on to Sri Krishna. Purport. The Lord is the absolute form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. As such, transcendental loving service to the Lord in one of the five principal relations, namely Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. That is naturality, servitorship,
Neutrality.
neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, parental affection, and conjugal love is graciously accepted by the Lord when offered to the Lord in genuine love and affection. Sri Bhishma Deva is a greatest devotee of the Lord in the relation of servitorship. Thus, his throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws soft roses up to him, upon him. It appears that Bhishma Deva is repenting the actions he committed against the person of the Lord, but factually, the Lord's body was not at all pained due to his transcendental existence. His body is not matter. Both he himself and his body are a complete spiritual identity. Spirit is never pierced, burnt, dried, moistened, etc. This is vividly explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So also it is stated in the Skanda Purana. It is said that that spirit is always uncontaminated and indestructible. It cannot be distressed, nor it can be dried up. When Lord Vishnu in his incarnation appears before us, he seems to be like one of the conditioned souls, materially encased, just to bewilder the asuras or the non-believers, who are always alert to kill the Lord, even from the very beginning of his appearance. Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna and Ravana wanted to kill Rama because foolishly they were unaware of the fact that the Lord is never killed, but the spirit is never annihilated. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Complete, please do.
Yeah. Therefore, Bhishma Deva's piercing of the body of Lord Krishna is sort of a bewildering problem for the non-devotee atheist, but those who are devotees or liberated souls are not bewildered. Bhishma Deva appreciated the all-merciful attitude of the Lord because he did not leave Arjuna alone Although he was disturbed by the sharpened arrows of Bhishmadeva, nor was he reluctant to come before Bhishma's deathbed, even though he was ill-treated by him on the battlefield. Bhishma's repentance and the Lord's merciful attitude are both unique in this picture. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah, Mata, please read Samyukta Mata, this one.
Prabhuji, Deepa Mataji, join here, Prabhuji.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah, Mata, please go ahead.
Driving, you can read. I'm on listening mode.
Sure, Mata.
Yes, Prabhuji. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, a great Acharya and devotee in the humor of conjugal love with the Lord, remarks very saliently in this regard. He says that the wounds created on the body of the Lord by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Deva were as pleasing to the Lord as the biting of a fiancé who bites the Lord's body directed by a strong sense of sex desire. Such biting by the opposite sex is never taken as a sign of enmity, even if there is a wound on the body. Therefore, the fighting as an exchange or transcendental pleasure between the Lord and his pure devotee, Sri Bhishma Deva, was not at all mundane. Besides that, since the Lord's body and the Lord are identical, there was no possibility of wounds in the absolute body. The apparent wounds caused by the sharpened arrows are misleading to the common man. But one who has a little absolute knowledge can understand the transcendental exchange in the chivalrous reaction. The Lord was The Lord was perfectly happy with the wounds caused by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Deva. The word Vibhidhyamana is significant because the Lord's skin is not different from the Lord, because our skin is different from our soul. In our case, the word Vibhidhyamana or being bruised and cut would have been quite suitable. Transcendental bliss is of different varieties, and the variety of activities in the mundane world is but a perverted reflection of transcendental bliss. Because everything in the mundane world is qualitatively mundane, it is full of inebrities, whereas in the absolute dream, because everything is of the same absolute nature, there are varieties of enjoyment without inebriety. The Lord enjoyed the wounds created by his great devotee Bhishma Deva, and because Bhishma Deva is a devotee in the chivalrous reaction, he fixes up his mind He fixes up his mind on Krishna in that wounded condition. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mata. Yeah, Sandhya Mata. Hare Krishna Mata. Sandhya Mata. Okay. Raju Group, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guruji. Translation. In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the area of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana. And while there he shortened the lifespan of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my friend be fixed upon the Krishna. Let my mind be fixed upon the Krishna. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 1.21 to 25, Arjuna ordered the infallible Lord Sri Krishna to place his chariot between the phalanxes of the soldiers. He asked him to stay there until he had finished observing the enemies he had to face in the battle. When the Lord was so asked, he at once did so, just like an order carrier. And the Lord pointed out all the important men on the opposite side, saying, here is Bhishma, here is Drona, and so on. The Lord being the supreme living being, he never the order supplier or order carrier of anyone, whoever he may be. But out of his causeless mercy and affection for his pure devotee, sometimes he carries out the order of the devotee like an awaiting servant. By executing the order of a devotee, the Lord becomes pleased, as a father is pleased to carry out the order of the small child. This is possible only out of pure transcendental love between the Lord and his devotees. And Bhishma Deva was quite aware of this fact. He therefore addressed the Lord as the friend of Arjuna. The Lord diminished the duration of life of the opposite party by his merciful glance. It is said that all the fighters who assembled in the battle of Kurukshetra attained salvation by personally seeing the Lord at the time of death. Therefore, he is diminishing the duration of life. Arjuna's enemy does not mean that he was partial to the cause of Arjuna. Factually, he was merciful to the opposite party because they could not have attained salvation by dying at home in the ordinary course of life. Here was a chance to see the Lord at the time of death and thus attain salvation from material life. Therefore, the Lord is all good, and whatever he does for everyone's good. Apparently, it was for the victory of Arjuna, his intimate friend, but factually, it was for the good of Arjuna's enemies. Such are the transcendental activities of the Lord, and whoever understands this also gets salvation after quitting this material body. The Lord does no wrong in any circumstances because he is absolute, all good at all the times. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lalit Mantra.
When Arjuna was seemingly
Voice low.
When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering the transcendental law. May his lotus feet always remain of mankind. Is it audible now, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Purport. The kings and the commanders were to stand in the front of the fighting soldiers. That was the system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or ministers of defense as they are today. They would not stay home while the poor soldiers or mercenaries were fighting face to face. This may be the regulation of modern democracy. But when actually monarchy was prevailing, the monarchs were not cowards, elected without consideration of qualification. As it was evident from the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all the executive heads of the both parties like Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Duryodhana were not sleeping. All of them were actual participants in the fighting, which was selected to be executed at a place away from the civil residential quarters. This means that the innocent citizens were immune from all the effects of fighting between the rival royal parties. The citizens had no business knowing what was going to happen in the fighting. They were to pay 1/4 of their income to the ruler, whether he be Arjuna or Duryodhana. All the commanders of the parties on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were standing face to face, and Arjuna saw them with great compassion and lamented that he was to kill his kinsmen on the battlefield for the sake of the empire. He was not at all afraid of the giant military phalanx presented by Duryodhana, but as a merciful devotee of the Lord, renunciation of worldly things was natural for him, and thus he decided not to fight for worldly possessions. But this was due to a poor fund of knowledge, and therefore it is said here that his intelligence became polluted. His intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was the constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Apparently, Arjuna's intelligence became polluted because otherwise there would not have been a chance to deliver the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for the good of all polluted conditioned souls engaged in the material body by the conception of false material body. The Bhagavad Gita was delivered from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Atma Vidya, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Let me read. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way for food. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but it's at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishma Deva, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishma Deva therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied, and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhishma Deva could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself. Otherwise, his friend Arjuna would die. The next day's fighting, Bhishma Deva fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Deva the very next moment. At that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee, Bhishma, by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishma Deva in an angry mood, as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger, he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishma Deva at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhishma Deva wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death appear imminent. He stood before Bhishma Deva to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. There is one picture, beautiful painting. Bhishma Deva, Krishna holds that wheel. We'll read another couple of minutes, then we'll go to sloka. Chandramohan Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Purport. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishma Deva on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting because the activities of Lord Sri Krishna appear to be partial to Arjuna and at enmity with Bhishma Deva. But factually, all this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishma Deva, a great devotee of the Lord. The astounding feature of such dealing is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee even in his garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have an enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him because he is Ajita or unconquerable. But still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. These are some of the transcendental reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. And those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. Bhishmadeva played the part of the valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord, so that to the common eyes it appears that the Lord was wounded, but factually all this was to bewilder the non-devotees. The all spiritual body cannot be wounded, and the devotee become enemy of the Lord. Lord, had it been so, Bhishmadeva would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the uh, ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishmadeva been an enemy of the Lord, Lord Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishmadeva with blood and wounds, but he did so because the warrior devotees wanted to see the transcendental dignity of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasa, relations between the Lord and the warrior servitor. But by such dealings, both the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving towards Bhishmadeva, but in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded towards Bhishmadeva as a lover goes to lover without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his determination was to kill Bhishmadeva, but actually, it was to please him, a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. The impersonalists desire salvation from him, and he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here, Bhishmadeva aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Let us stop here. Thank you. Thank you all for reading today. Let us go to our sloka practice. Let me stop sharing this one. And let me do this one. All the slokas. Bhagavad Gita 13.22. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunte prakritijan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. 13. Bhagavad Gita 13.23. Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti cha pyukto dehesmin purushapara. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo abhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamaivamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana manashashthanindriyani prakristani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivisto matta smritirjnanamapohanam cha vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyo vedanta kritvedavid eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am knower of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Brahma bhuta prasannatma nasochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Bhagavad Gita 18.55. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full conscious of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18.65. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhya mam namaskuru mami vaisasi satyante pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Gita 18.66. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavratam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monastic philosophy and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. Bhakti Rasama Sindhu 1.1.12. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all senses. When the spiritual renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. Bhakti Rasam Sindhu 1.2.234. Atha Sri Krishna Namadi Nabhave Grahyamindriyaihi Sevonmukhehi Jihvadav Swayam Eva Spuratyadaha. Because Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all on the absolute platform. Material senses cannot therefore appreciate them. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.255. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts anything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Hare Krishna. So, 13 slokas, right? 13 slokas. It took me 8 minutes. Okay. So anybody likes to recite? We'll do one more time, then we'll wrap up.
Can I do that?
Yes, Prabhu, do it. Audio is not audio.
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतियान् गुणान् कारणं Sadasad yoni janmasu. Translation. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Upadrushtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwarah paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purusha parah. Translation. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Translation. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Mamaivaamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha manah sashtani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. Translation. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Sarvasya chaham mattha smritirjnanamapohanam cha vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta kritveda videva. Translation. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakanti Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Para. Translation. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Bhaktya mam abhijana yavanyascha tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam yeva satyam te pratijane priyosine. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my Sarvadharman Yajna Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Suchaha. Translation. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnanakarmadhyanavrtam anukulyena krishnano shilanam bhakti uttama. When the first class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desire, knowledge obtained by the monastic philosophy, and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. Atha Sri Krishna Namad na bhavet grahyam indriyai sevonmuke hi jihvado swayam eva spuratyadaha. Because Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all on the absolute platform, material senses cannot therefore appreciate them. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandh yuktam vairagyam chate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts anything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Thank you, Prabhu.
Today, a beautiful soul's birthday actually. Let us do 3 times Hare Krishna mantra for the spiritual progress of our dear friend Lalit Mohan Prabhu. Please unmute. Please unmute yourself. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
ఒక్కొక్క రియలైజేషన్ చెప్పి మీరు వైండ్ అప్ చేద్దాం బ్రో. ఒక చెప్పండి. as days passing, as we are growing up in our material bodies, one realization share and let us wind up. Share your one realization which helps us. No, all realization angane ellipoyindi Prabhu. Let me see. I'll ask him. Just stay mouth eyes Prabhu. I'll ask him again. Lalit Mohan Prabhu. Very nice. You got another call, okay. Sure, I'll ask him next time. Tomorrow anyway, he'll join. Yes. Thank you so much for reading today and sloka recitation and chanting. Pranam pranam subhancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada translated book reading ki jai. Hitai Gaura Hari Premanande Hari Hari Bo. See you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.